The winter night was colder than usual, the kind of cold that seeped into bones and made people hurry without even realizing it. The city was busy with lights, expensive cars, and warm buildings, but the air outside felt sharp and unforgiving. People walked fast, collars turned up, hands tucked deep into their pockets. No one wanted to stay outside longer than needed. After a long charity event at a luxury hotel, the millionaire stepped outside. He looked calm, but inside he felt tired. These events always felt the same polite smiles, speeches about helping others, and applause that faded as soon as people went home. He was known for his success and wealth, but nights like this often left him strangely empty. He paused near the entrance, breathing in the cold air as his driver went to bring the car closer. As he stood there, he noticed movement near the edge of the parking area. At first he thought it was just another guest waiting for a ride, but then he looked again. A very young girl stood alone near a streetlight. The light flickered above her, throwing uneven shadows. She wore a thin jacket that was clearly not enough for the cold. Her arms were wrapped tightly around herself, and she kept shifting from foot to foot, trying to stay warm. She looked small, too small to be alone at that hour. Her hair was messy, and her shoes looked worn out, the kind that had seen too many winters. Her face was pale, and her lips looked slightly blue from the cold. She kept glancing around as if she were unsure whether to approach anyone or run away. The millionaire looked away at first. People asked him for help all the time. Some stories were real, others not. Over the years, he had learned to protect himself by keeping distance. Still, something about the girl pulled his attention back. She did not look like someone trying to get money or attention. She looked scared. Truly scared, the driver arrived with the car, opening the door politely. Just as the millionaire was about to step in, he saw the girl take a slow, careful step forward. Then another. She stopped, hesitated, and pulled her jacket closer around her. For a moment, it seemed like she would turn back. Then she took a deep breath and walked toward him. Her hands shook as she stood a few feet away. She did not look up right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet and unsteady. "Sir?" "I'm sorry," she said, barely louder than the wind. Can you take me home?" The driver stiffened immediately. His eyes moved between the girl and the millionaire, cautious and unsure. He had seen situations like this before. Strangers approaching late at night could mean trouble. He cleared his throat gently, ready to step in. But the millionaire raised a hand slightly, stopping him. He looked at the girl more closely now. There was no rush in her words, no demand. Just a simple question, filled with fear and hope at the same time. Her eyes finally met his, and that was what changed everything. There was no dishonesty there, only exhaustion and desperation. "Where are your parents?" he asked softly. The girl looked down at the ground. Her shoulders tightened. "I just need to go home," she repeated. Avoiding the question, a few people walked past them, laughing, talking about dinner plans and warm beds. None of them slowed down. None of them noticed the girl standing there, shivering in the open. The millionaire felt something twist inside his chest. He remembered being young, cold, and scared once, a memory he rarely allowed himself to touch. He had learned long ago that the world did not stop for children who were struggling. The driver leaned closer and whispered, "Sir, it's very cold, and this could be risky." The millionaire nodded slightly. He understood. Still, he could not ignore what was happening in front of him. He took off his coat without thinking and gently handed it to the girl. She hesitated, surprised by the gesture. "Put this on," he said. She slowly slipped her arms into it. The coat was too big for her, hanging almost to her knees, but the warmth was instant. Her shoulders relaxed, just a little. "Thank you," she whispered. He crouched slightly so he was closer to her eye level. "How far is your home?" She bit her lower lip, thinking. "Not too far," she said. "I can show you." That answer worried him, but he also knew leaving her there felt worse. After a brief pause, he straightened and looked at the driver. "Open the back door," he said. The driver hesitated but obeyed. The girl's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes," the millionaire replied. "You shouldn't be out here in this cold." She stepped into the car carefully, as if afraid the offer might disappear if she moved too quickly. The inside was warm and quiet. As soon as the door closed, her trembling became more noticeable. Her teeth gently chattered, and she pulled the coat tighter around herself. The car began to move. City lights slid past the windows. For a while, no one spoke. The millionaire glanced at her from time to time without staring. Her hands were red from the cold and her nails were chipped. She seemed younger up close. "Too young to be wandering alone at night? Are you warm enough?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, thank you." Another silence followed. The sound of tires on the road filled the space between them. "Do you live with your family?" he asked gently. She stared out the window this time. "Sometimes," she said. That single word raised more questions than answers. The car turned into quieter streets, away from bright buildings and busy crowds. The houses became smaller, older. Streetlights were farther apart, some not working at all. The girl watched closely, as if measuring every turn. After a few minutes, she leaned forward slightly. "Turn here," she said softly. The driver followed her directions. With each turn, the millionaire felt a growing sense of unease. This did not feel like a safe neighborhood, especially at night. He noticed the girl pulling her sleeves down over her hands again, even though the car was warm now. It was a nervous habit, not from cold. "You can tell me if something's wrong," he said carefully. "I just want to make sure you're safe." She pressed her lips together. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she shook her head. "I just want to go home," she repeated.
Oh.
But her voice cracked this time. The car slowed at a red light. In the reflection of the window, the millionaire saw tears gathering in her eyes. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed, and turned away. He did not push her further. Some truths came only when people were ready. The light turned green, and the car moved forward again, heading deeper into the quiet streets. The night felt heavier now, as if something important was slowly revealing itself. Neither of them knew it yet. But this simple ride had already begun to change everything. The car moved slowly through the quiet streets, the sound of the engine soft and steady. Inside, the warmth felt almost unreal compared to the freezing night outside. The girl sat with her hands folded in her lap, wrapped tightly in the oversized coat. It still smelled faintly of clean fabric and something else. Comfort, maybe? She breathed a little easier now, but the tension in her shoulders had not fully gone. The millionaire watched the road ahead, though his thoughts kept drifting back to the small figure beside him. He wondered how long she had been standing out there before she gathered the courage to speak. He wondered how many people had passed her by without seeing her at all. "You can take your time," he said quietly, breaking the silence. "We're not in a hurry." She nodded but did not say anything. Her eyes followed the streetlights as they passed, bright for a moment, then gone. After a while, he spoke again. "Do you come to that area often?" She hesitated. "Sometimes," she replied. Her answers were careful. Each word felt chosen to reveal as little as possible. He could tell she was used to protecting herself. The car turned onto a narrower road. Old buildings stood close together, their windows dark. A stray cat ran across the street, disappearing between two houses. The girl flinched slightly, then relaxed again. "Is this the right way?" the driver asked politely. "Yes," the girl said quickly. "It is." The millionaire noticed how alert she was now. This place meant something to her, whether that something was comfort or fear. He was not yet sure. He remembered his own childhood nights, riding in buses late with his mother, clutching her hand while pretending not to be afraid. He had promised himself long ago that if he ever had the power to help someone feel safe, he would not turn away. The car slowed, then stopped at another light. The girl shifted in her seat and pulled her legs closer to herself. "Are you hungry?" he asked gently. She shook her head too fast. No, he did not believe her. Her stomach made a quiet sound just then, and her face flushed. "It's okay," he said. "You don't have to pretend." She looked at him for a moment, unsure. Then her shoulders dropped, just slightly. "I ate earlier," she said softly. He did not press the issue. Hunger, like fear, was something people hid when they had learned to expect nothing as they moved farther away from the city center. The streets grew darker. The houses looked tired, paint peeling, balconies leaning just a little too much. A few lights flickered behind curtains, but most windows were black. "Turn here," she said, pointing ahead. The driver turned. The road became rougher, uneven. The millionaire felt a knot tighten in his chest. He glanced at the girl. She was staring straight ahead now, jaw clenched. "You don't have to be scared," he told her quietly. She swallowed. "I'm not," she said, but her hands tightened around the coat. After a few moments, she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Most people don't stop." He looked at her. "Stop when I ask for help," she said. "They don't stop." The words hung in the air. Simple. Heavy. "You shouldn't have to ask," he replied. A small, sad smile appeared on her face, then faded. The car turned into a narrow lane lined with trash bins and broken fences. It was clear now that they were far from a safe or comfortable place. The driver slowed down, uneasy. "This is close," the girl said quickly. "Just a little more." The millionaire looked out the window. He saw a group of older men standing near a corner, talking loudly. He saw kids playing near a broken swing set, despite the cold. Something felt wrong. "Do you live alone?" he asked carefully. She shook her head. "No. Who lives with you?" She did not answer right away. The car rolled forward slowly. "My aunt," she said finally. "And some other people." An answer only deepened his concern. The car stopped in front of a tall, run-down building. The walls were cracked, and one of the front windows was boarded up. The light above the entrance flickered the same way the streetlight had earlier. "That's it," the girl said, her voice flat. The driver put the car in park. But the millionaire did not move. "This is where you live?" he asked. She nodded without looking at him. He studied the building. Nothing about it felt like a place a child should call home. "You're sure you're safe here?" he asked. Her silence was answer enough. Outside, the wind picked up, pushing trash across the ground. The girl's eyes filled with tears again, though she tried hard not to let them fall. "I don't want to get you in trouble," she said suddenly. "You can go." He turned fully toward her. "I'm already here," he said. "That's not trouble." She looked at him then, really looked at him. Her guard slipped for just a second. "It's just for tonight," she whispered. "I'll be fine." He had heard those words before. From people pretending to be stronger than they were. He leaned forward slightly. "What happens if you go inside?" She shook her head quickly. "Please," she said. "I don't want to talk about it." He respected that. But he also knew he could not simply leave. "Would you be willing to sit here a little longer?" he asked, "just to warm up." She hesitated, then nodded. The minutes passed in silence. The driver kept his eyes on the building, alert. "Do you go to school?" the millionaire asked gently. "Yes," she said, "when I can." "What do you like there?" She paused. "The library," she replied. "It's quiet." He smiled softly. "That was my favorite place too." For the first time since they met, her expression changed. Curiosity flickered across her face. "Really?" "Yes," he said. "Books were my way out." She hugged the coat closer. "I like stories," she admitted. "They feel safer." He understood that more than she knew. Another gust of wind rattled the building outside. A door slammed somewhere nearby. The girl flinched again. That was the moment he knew. Leaving her here would haunt him. He took a slow breath. "Would you trust me for a little longer?" he asked. She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said carefully, "you don't have to go inside right now." Her heart began to race. "Then where would I go?" "Somewhere warm," he replied. "Somewhere safe." Her eyes widened. Fear and hope collided in her expression. "I can't ask for that," she said quickly. "You didn't," he replied. "I'm offering." Tears finally spilled onto her cheeks. She wiped them away with the sleeve of the borrowed coat. "I don't want to be a burden," she whispered. He shook his head. "You're not." The building loomed outside, dark and uninviting. Inside the car, everything felt still. After a long moment, she nodded once. "Okay," she said quietly. And with that simple word, The night took a turn none of them would ever forget. The car remained parked for a moment longer, the engine humming softly as if it too was unsure what would come next. Outside, the building stood quiet and heavy, its windows dark, like closed eyes. Inside the car, the warmth felt fragile, like it might disappear at any sudden move. The girl kept her gaze low, fingers gripping the sleeves of the coat. Agreeing to stay had taken more courage than she wanted to admit. She felt guilty already. It's like she had broken some invisible rule about not accepting help. The millionaire broke the silence first. "We'll go somewhere close," he said calmly. "Nothing complicated. Just to get you rested." She nodded, still unsure. "Just for tonight," she repeated, as if saying it enough times would make it safer. "That's fine," he replied. "One step at a time." The driver slowly pulled away from the building, the tires crunching lightly against the uneven road. As the car moved forward, the girl looked back through the rear window. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just watched as the place grew smaller and then disappeared around the corner. Her chest felt tight, but there was also a quiet relief she could not deny. They drove toward a better-lit area, where shops had metal shutters pulled halfway down and cafes were closing for the night. The streets were calmer here, safer somehow. The girl leaned back in her seat, the tension in her body finally starting to ease. "You don't have to stay awake," the millionaire said softly when he noticed her eyelids drooping. "I can," she replied quickly, forcing them open. "I'm fine." He smiled gently, but did not argue. He remembered being that way himself, staying alert because sleep had never felt like a luxury he could afford. After a few minutes, he asked, "Has anyone ever helped you like this before?" She thought for a moment. "Not really," she said. "People say they will, but then they don't." "That must be hard," he said. She shrugged. "You get used to it." That answer made his chest ache. Children should not have to get used to disappointment. The car pulled into the driveway of a quiet building with warm lights in the lobby and a doorman standing by the entrance. It wasn't a hotel people noticed on the outside. Nothing flashy. Just clean, calm, and safe. When the car stopped, the girl sat up straight, suddenly nervous again. "Where are we?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," he said. "You can rest here," Access stated. "Is it expensive?" He let out a soft breath. "That doesn't matter." The driver opened the door. Warm air rushed out to meet the cold from outside. The girl stepped out slowly, holding the coat tight around herself. The doorman offered a polite nod but asked no questions. Inside, the lobby glowed with soft light. The floor was warm under her feet. The girl paused, taking it all in like something from a dream. "Is this for families?" she asked quietly. "It's for people," the millionaire replied. They checked in quickly. No one stared. No one whispered. That small dignity mattered more than anyone realized. Upstairs, the room was simple but clean. A bed with white sheets, a lamp glowing softly, a small table with water bottles. The girl stood in the doorway, unsure if she was allowed to step inside. "You can sit," he said kindly. She sat on the edge of the bed, barely touching it at first, as if expecting to be told to move. "Do you want something warm to eat?" he asked. She shook her head automatically, then stopped herself. "Maybe soup," she admitted. He smiled. "Soup sounds perfect." While food was arranged, he stepped aside to make a phone call. Nothing dramatic, just arrangements with people he trusted. Help that wouldn't scare her or overwhelm her. When he returned, the girl was still sitting exactly where he'd left her. "You can relax," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." She nodded, biting her lip. When the soup arrived, she smelled it first. Her stomach twisted in response. She tried to eat slowly, politely, but hunger took over. She stopped halfway, embarrassed. "Sorry," she said. "Don't be," he replied. "I'm glad you're eating." Afterward, exhaustion hit her all at once. Her eyes filled again, this time without fear. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You already did," he said. "You trusted me." She lay down carefully, still wearing the coat. Within minutes, sleep claimed her. deep and heavy. The billionaire sat quietly in the chair by the window, watching the city lights outside. He felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Responsibility, yes, but also purpose. He remembered nights from his past when no one had watched over him. He stayed there until he was sure she was truly asleep. The next morning, sunlight filled the room. The girl woke slowly, confused at first. For a brief second, panic flickered. Then she remembered. She sat up, realizing she was warm, safe. There was a gentle knock on the door. "Yes," she called, her voice still rough. The door opened slightly. "Good morning," the millionaire said. "Did you sleep okay?" She nodded. "I did." "I brought breakfast," he added. "Only if you want it." She smiled faintly. It was the first real smile he had seen. They ate together, quietly, without pressure. Afterward, she grew more serious. "I can't stay forever," she said. "I know," he replied. "But we should talk." She tensed again, expecting questions that felt like traps. "You don't have to tell me everything," he said gently. "Just enough to make sure you're okay." She looked down. Then, slowly, she began to speak. She talked about nights spent unwanted, about being passed from one place to another, about learning when to be quiet, when to disappear. He listened without interrupting, without judgment. When she finished, the room was silent. "That wasn't your fault," he said. Quietly, she looked at him like no one had ever said that to her before. No one's ever stayed this long. She admitted, "I'm not leaving today." He replied. Tears rolled down her face. But this time, they were different. For the first time in a long while, she believed him. Morning moved slowly, like it didn't want to interrupt the quiet that filled the room. Outside, the city was waking up, but inside, everything felt calm. The girl sat near the window, wrapped in the coat, watching people pass below. She had never seen this side of the city in the daylight. It looked softer than it had at night. The millionaire gave her space. He believed safety also meant not being rushed. He sat at the small table, reviewing messages on his phone, but most of his attention stayed with her. Every time she shifted or sighed, he noticed. After a while, she spoke without looking at him. "I don't usually wake up like this," she said. "Like what?" he asked. "Not scared," she replied. He nodded. "That makes sense." She turned toward him, curious. "You're not asking a lot of questions." "I don't want you to feel tested," he said. "This isn't an interview." That answer seemed to surprise her. She thought for a moment, then asked, "Why are you helping me?" It was a fair question. He leaned back slightly. "Because I saw you," he said simply. "And because someone once ignored me when I needed help." She didn't ask him to explain further. She understood enough. Later that morning, he asked if she felt okay going for a short walk. "Not far, just to get some air." She hesitated, then agreed. They walked slowly along a quiet street. He matched his pace to hers. She kept her hands in her pockets, shoulders relaxed, but alert. It reminded him how often she had probably learned to stay ready. "Do you like school?" he asked. She frowned a little. "I like learning." "School isn't always kind." "I know that feeling," he said. She glanced at him. "Really?" "Yes," he replied. "People think money means an easy life. It didn't start that way." She believed him. She had learned to sense truth in small things. They stopped near a small park. Children played on swings, their laughter cutting through the air. The girl watched quietly. "I used to play like that," she said. "You still can," he replied gently. She shook her head. "Not in the same way." They headed back upstairs. Inside the room again, she suddenly looked serious. "I can't disappear," she said. "People will notice." "I wouldn't want you to," he replied. "We'll do this the right way." Those words scared her. "What does that mean?" "It means support," he explained. "It means making sure you're safe long term, and doing it legally." Her breathing changed. "I don't want to be taken somewhere strange. It won't happen without you understanding it," he promised. She studied his face, searching for lies. She found none. That afternoon, he made calls again. quiet calls. The kind that didn't sound urgent but mattered deeply. He reached out to counselors, social workers he trusted, people who had helped others rebuild lives without headlines or cameras. When he finished, he returned to the room. She was sitting cross-legged on the bed, reading a book he had brought up earlier. "Is it okay if someone comes to talk with us?" he asked. "With you here?" She asked. "Yes," he said. She nodded slowly. "Okay." A woman arrived later that day. She spoke softly, carried no clipboard, and sat at eye level. She asked questions like someone who actually listened. The girl answered a little at first, then more. The millionaire stayed close but quiet. When it was over, the girl looked tired but lighter. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like someone believes me," she said. "That's important," he replied. That evening, dinner came and went. The girl ate better this time, less rushed. Afterward, she asked something unexpected. "Will I have to go back?" He did not answer quickly. "Not tonight," he said honestly, "and we'll work toward a better answer for tomorrow." She nodded, trusting him again. That night, she slept without the coat for the first time. The next day brought uncertainty. Options were discussed quietly. Temporary places, routines, school arrangements. Nothing forced. Nothing rushed. The girl listened, sometimes contributing, sometimes just absorbing. "I didn't know people planned like this," she said at one point. "Planning is a form of care," he replied. By afternoon, a path was forming. Not perfect, but real. That was when doubt crept in. "What if this doesn't last?" she asked later. He looked at her. "Some things don't last forever," he said, "but they can last long enough to change things." She smiled faintly. "I hope so." Before night fell, he handed her something small. "A phone. Simple. No extras. So you can reach me," he said. Her hands trembled as she took it. "You trust me?" "Yes," he replied. Tears threatened again, but she held them back. Outside, the city lights came on one by one. Inside, a quiet decision had already been made. This wasn't just about one night anymore. It was about a future that finally felt possible. The morning came quietly, as if it knew shouting would break something fragile. Sunlight slipped through the curtains and rested on the floor near the bed. The girl woke slowly, not from fear, but from a simple habit of always being alert. She sat up and listened. No shouting, no heavy footsteps. Just the distant sound of the city starting another day. For a moment, she stayed still, unsure if the safety she felt was real. Then she remembered where she was and what the last few days had been like. The warmth returned to her chest. She swung her feet onto the floor and stood, breathing in deeply. When she stepped into the sitting area, the millionaire was already awake. He stood by the window, holding a cup of coffee he hadn't finished. He turned when he heard her. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied. They smiled in an easy way now. Not forced. Not careful. Breakfast arrived soon after. She ate without rushing, without watching the door or counting bites. It was a small thing, but to her, felt like proof that life could be different. Afterward, they sat together and reviewed the next steps. Nothing dramatic, just calm plans. A temporary place already approved. A school nearby that had agreed to help her adjust slowly. Regular check-ins with people who cared. "You'll have your own room," he said. "And people who listen." She twisted her hands together. "I've never had my own room." "You will," he replied. Her eyes filled, but she smiled. "I don't know how to act." "You'll figure it out," he said. "There's no rush." Later that day, they packed the few things she had brought with her. There wasn't much. He noticed how light the bag was and wondered how someone so young had learned to live with so little as they rode in the car again. The city looked different. The same streets, the same buildings, but she felt different now. "Do you think people really change?" she asked suddenly. "Yes," he answered. "Not all at once, but piece by piece." When they arrived at the new place, she hesitated at the door. Her heart thumped loudly in her ears. "You don't have to go in alone," he said. She nodded and stepped forward. The place was simple, safe, friendly faces, calm voices. Someone showed her her room, a bed with a soft blanket, a desk by the window. She stood there quietly. "This is yours," someone said, after they left. She sat on the bed and touched the blanket. Just to be sure it was real that evening, the millionaire prepared to leave. He didn't want to make this about dependence. He crouched slightly so they were at eye level. "I'll visit," he said. "And you can call any time," she nodded. "I know," she paused, then said, "Thank you for stopping." He felt his throat tighten. "Thank you for asking." Weeks passed. The girl slowly settled into her routine. She went to school most days. She spent time in the library. She laughed more. The staff noticed how quickly she learned, how carefully she watched the world. The millionaire checked in often, sometimes in person, sometimes just a message. He never missed a call. One afternoon, she showed him something she had written, a short story about a girl who finally felt warm. "It's good," he said honestly. She beamed. Months later, winter came again. But this time, the girl wore a proper coat. Her hands were warm. Her smile was easy. They met again near the same hotel where everything had begun. She looked up at the building, then back at him. "I don't shake anymore," she said. He smiled. "I noticed." She took a deep breath. "I want to help people someday, like you did." Shook his head gently. "Like you're doing now, just by being brave." As they parted, he watched her walk confidently down the street, no longer invisible. That night, he realized something important. Success had given him comfort, but compassion had finally given him peace. Life did not change all at once. It changed slowly, in ways that were easy to miss if you were not paying attention. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The girl learned how mornings could feel when there was no panic behind them. She learned how night could come without fear. She still woke up early, often before everyone else. Old habits did not disappear easily. But now, when she woke, she listened to quiet sounds that felt safe. A door closing softly. Someone making tea in the kitchen. These sounds told her she belonged. School became a steadier part of her life. At first, she stayed quiet, choosing seats near the window or the back of the room. She watched people before trusting them. Teachers noticed her effort more than her silence. They gave her space, and that helped. The library became her favorite place again. She spent hours there, reading and sometimes writing. Words began to feel like friends rather than escapes. She wrote about things she noticed now. Warm soup, clean socks, a smile from someone who expected nothing from her in return. The millionaire visited when he could. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just sat and shared food. He never asked her to thank him. He never told her she owed him anything. That made her trust him more. One afternoon, she asked him a question that surprised him. "Were you lonely when you were a kid?" she asked. He thought for a moment before answering. "Yes," he said. "Very," she nodded, as if that explained something important. As time passed, she grew more confident. She learned which doors were meant to be knocked on and which ones never needed to be. She learned that asking for help was not weakness. It was a skill. There were hard days too. Days when memories came back without permission. On those days, she sometimes grew quiet again. But now, someone noticed. Someone asked if she wanted to talk or wanted space. Both options mattered. Winter ended and spring arrived gently. Trees slowly came back to life, and so did she. She joined a small writing group at school. Her stories were simple, but honest. People listened. One evening, she showed the millionaire a letter she had written but never sent. "It's for the girl I used to be," she explained. He read it carefully and handed it back without comment. His eyes were wet. "You saved her," he said. She shook her head. "I survived her." That summer, she helped younger kids at a learning center. It felt strange to be the one offering help, but it also felt right. She understood nervous eyes and folded arms. "You don't have to talk," she told one child. "Just sit with me." The millionaire watched from a distance and said nothing. He understood that some moments did not belong to him. One day she asked to visit the place where they first met. She thought she was ready. They stood near the hotel entrance, the same cold air replaced by warm sunshine. People still rushed past. Some things never changed. I was so scared, she said quietly. And brave, he replied. She smiled. I didn't know that then. Neither of them stayed long. That night, she slept easily. The world had not become perfect, but it had become kinder. And for her, that was enough to keep going. Time moved forward in a way she had never known before. Not in sharp jumps filled with worry, but in steady steps that gave her room to breathe. The days were no longer about surviving until night. They were about waking up with plans, even small ones, and knowing someone expected her to show up. She had grown taller, not just in body, but in how she carried herself. Her shoulders were no longer always raised in defense. Her eyes met people's faces more often. She still noticed everything, but fear no longer guided her every move. School became a place of effort instead of escape. She struggled in some classes, especially the ones that demanded speaking up. But she stayed. That alone would have seemed impossible once. Teachers learned her pace. They did not rush her. That patience mattered more than praise. The library still felt like home. But now she also liked sitting near windows, where sunlight touched the page as she read. She began writing more seriously. Not just stories, but thoughts. Pages filled with moments she didn't want to forget. The first time she laughed without stopping herself. The first time she slept through a storm. The first time she realized she felt safe, even when she was alone. The millionaire watched her progress quietly. He never turned her story into something public. No interviews. No photos. He learned that helping sometimes meant standing back. He showed up when asked, and stepped away when not. Once, during a walk, she asked him why he never told anyone what he had done because it wasn't done for them. Said she thought about that for a long time. As months passed, she began helping more at the learning center. Kids trusted her quickly. They sensed that she understood silence. She remembered how it felt when adults talked too much and listened a little. She chose her words carefully. One evening, a little girl refused to come inside from the cold. She stood frozen near the door, eyes fixed on the ground. It's okay, she told her gently. I was scared too, once. The girl looked up. Just for a second. That was enough. The millionaire attended events again, but they felt different now. The speeches rang hollow in a way he could not ignore. He started shifting where his money went. Smaller programs. Real people. Fewer banners. One night, after a long meeting, he drove himself instead of calling a driver. He passed the spot where he had first seen her. The streetlight was still broken. People still hurried past. He parked for a moment and sat there in silence. He realized that night had changed him more than he ever admitted. Years passed. The girl became a young woman. Her voice gained strength, though it never lost its softness. She continued writing, sometimes sharing her work, sometimes keeping it private. She learned that both choices were valid. She spoke once at a small gathering. Her hands shook at first, then she steadied them. I didn't need someone to save me, she said. I needed someone to stop. People listened. The millionaire sat in the back, unnoticed. That was exactly how he wanted it. Afterward, she found him outside. You came, she said. Of course, he replied. They walked together for a while. The city had changed, but some streets stayed the same. Do you ever regret stopping that night? She asked. He smiled. Every day, I didn't before. She laughed quietly, then grew serious. I want to work with kids like me, she said. Not just help them survive. Help them see themselves. You will, he replied. You already are. She looked up at the sky. I still get scared sometimes. So do I, he said. They stood there, not as a rescue story, not as a symbol, but as two people whose lives had crossed at the right moment. Later that year, winter returned. Snow fell gently, covering the city in white. She walked through it wearing a warm coat, gloves, in a scarf she had chosen herself. She stopped near the same hotel entrance. For a moment, she watched the doors open and close. People moved in and out, unaware of the stories brushing past them. She did not feel small there anymore. She took out her phone and typed a message. "Still warm," it read a moment later. Her phone buzzed. "Always." Came the reply. She smiled and kept walking. Some stories ended loudly. Theirs didn't. It continued quietly. In choices made daily, in kindness passed forward. In lives changed not by force, but by attention. And that was enough. Life did not pause after the story people would have expected to be the ending. It kept moving, gently but firmly, asking both of them to keep growing in ways they had not planned. The girl, now older and steadier in herself, learned that healing was not a straight road. Some days felt strong and light. Other days carried old weight without warning. She was in her early adulthood now, balancing work, school, and volunteering. Her days were full, sometimes exhausting, but they were hers. She had a routine she protected carefully. Morning walks, quiet writing time, evenings spent listening more than speaking. The memory of that cold night never left her. It did not hurt the way it once had. It reminded her of how quickly a moment could turn into a crossing point. She began training formally to work with children from difficult backgrounds. Not because she felt she had to give back, but because it felt natural. She understood fear that did not use words. She understood silence that was not empty. In group sessions, she often sat back at first, letting others speak. When she did talk, her words were simple. "You're not broken," she once said to a room full of listening eyes. "You're learning how to breathe again," some cried. Some nodded. Some did nothing at all. She respected every response. The millionaire remained in her life, though their roles slowly changed. He was no longer a guide or protector. He was something steadier, a constant presence that did not demand anything. Sometimes they met for coffee. Sometimes weeks passed with only brief messages between them. That was okay. Trust did not fade anymore. One afternoon, she called him unexpectedly. "Can I ask you something strange?" She said. "Try me," he replied. "Why did you believe me so easily that night?" He thought carefully before answering. "Because you weren't asking for much," he said. "You were asking to be seen." She was quiet for a long moment after that. That answer stayed with her as time went on. She began speaking at small community events. Nothing grand. No stages with bright lights. Just circles of chairs and honest conversation. She never told her full story unless it felt right. She learned that privacy was also a form of power. At one of these gatherings, someone asked her if she still felt afraid. "Yes," she answered. "But fear doesn't decide for me anymore." That night, she went home and wrote for hours. Her writing slowly found its way into newsletters, then local publications. She didn't chase attention. It found her quietly. Readers wrote to her, thanking her for putting words to feelings they had never named. She read every message. She did not reply to all. Winter returned again. It always did. This time she volunteered at a late-night center during the coldest weeks. She handed out blankets, warm drinks, and quiet reassurance. One night, she noticed a young girl standing apart from the others. Arms wrapped tight around herself, the memory struck her so strongly she had to take a breath. She approached slowly. "Do you want to sit somewhere warm?" she asked. The girl nodded. Later, as she watched the girl relax, she felt something settle inside her. This is how it continues, she thought, not in grand gestures, but in stopping. The millionaire visited the city less often now. His work had shifted. He spent less time managing wealth and more time shaping how it could ease real suffering. He avoided publicity whenever possible. At a quiet dinner one evening, he admitted something he had never said before. "I used to think success was about control," he said. "Now I think it's about attention."
Ow.
She smiled. "You learned that early." "Thanks to you," he replied. She shook her head. "Thanks to a night, you didn't look away." Years layered gently on top of each other. The girl, now a woman, rented a small place of her own. The first night she slept there, she barely rested. The second night was easier. On the third night, she slept deeply and woke up smiling. She decorated slowly. Books first, then plants, then one photograph by her window. It was not of a person, but of a streetlight on a quiet road. She never explained it to anyone. One day, she received an invitation to speak at a larger event. The audience would be unfamiliar. The space bigger than she preferred. Fear crept in. She almost declined. Instead, she called the millionaire. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "You don't have to," he said. "But if you choose to, you won't be alone," she agreed. On the day of the event, she stood backstage, hands trembling slightly. She closed her eyes and breathed the way she had learned. When she stepped onto the stage, she did not search for approval. She spoke as she always did, slowly. "Honestly, I'm not here to inspire you," she said. "I'm here to remind you to notice." The room was silent. Afterward, people lined up to thank her. She accepted their words without letting them define her in the crowd. The millionaire watched quietly, heartful. Later, they walked together through the city, neither in a hurry. "You did good," he said. "So did you," she replied. They stopped near a crossing, waiting for the light to change. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "All the time," he answered. "Does it still make you emotional?" He nodded. "Yes, but in a good way." The light changed. They crossed. Life continued, not perfect, not easy, but honest. And that honesty became the story that never really ended.